Good afternoon, Danville. I'm Alan Shields, Chief of Police for the town of Danville, and we are 10-8 and in service to all of you, which means we're here to safeguard the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve, and we do that in order to make people's lives better. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And what I'd like to say is this is a live show, so if you have a question, you can jump right in the chat, ask a question, and we'll do our best to answer during the show, and if not, we'll get the answer and we'll answer it in the chat after the show. Title says it all, very low crime. We'll get to that, but I do want to cover a few things and give some kudos to all of you. But if you want to catch us live and in person, you want to give us feedback on what we can do as your police department to better serve the community, we're going to have opportunities to do that. And what we'd ask you to do is come and join us at Jamba Juice, and that'll be Wednesday, May 11th, and we're going to be there from 3 to 4, and it'll be at 35 Railroad Avenue. We plan on being there because that's when school's getting let out, and we know there's going to be a fair amount of kids. If you remember, the last 2 weeks, we asked all of you to come on out and drop off your unused medication. I want to remind everybody, Monday through Friday, we're here. You can come to the lobby, and we've got a nice drop box. You put it in a Ziploc bag, throw it in there, and we will take care of it for you. But we do hold these events on weekends once or twice a year. We asked all of you to come out, and you definitely came out. Let's take a look at this. So last weekend, we took in over 275 pounds of unused medication. And that's the picture on the bottom. All those boxes are from this weekend. That is an incredible haul. I think that's at least 100 pounds more than we've taken in the past, at least that I can remember from the last 5 to 10 years. But that is a lot of unused medication. So kudos to all of you, because that's not out. That's not potentially in hands of people that may mistakenly take it or abuse it. And it doesn't get flushed down the toilet, and we know that that causes wastewater treatment issues. So great job, Danville. Keep it up. And if you miss the event, again, Monday through Friday, you can call us and come down here and drop it off here in the lobby, and we'll be happy to take that for you. All right, another program that we kicked back off now that school's back in session, full swing, no masks, no restrictions. We've been going out to the schools, and we were out there today at Tassajara Hills Elementary doing recess with the cops. You can see we're giving some tips to the kids about wearing helmets. You'd think we would be talking about basketball and maybe the Warriors game last night, being that we're holding the basketballs. But we're out there giving tips, about wearing helmets, and then we did a little foot race. And I know it looks like all those little fifth graders are beating us, but believe it or not, that's a camera angle. There's no way the police got beat by fifth graders. It happened. They did. A couple of them were pretty fast, and it was fun. We're all out there running and having a good time, and it's just good to be back there with the kids. When we're out there with them, they're asking all of the questions we would expect kids to ask that only have the perception of law enforcement from TV and movies and all of that. So it's very good for us to provide a perspective as to what we do to serve the community, but then also what their obligations are as community members to keep the public safe. And I'm happy to say we've got great kids here in town. So every time we go out and we do these recess with the cops, we're just, I don't want to say we're amazed, but we're very proud of the kids. And they're, we had kids coming up to us saying, hey, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do. They're very respectful, very good. And it just reminds me that our schools are doing an excellent job at raising and educating our kids. So great job to the schools. If you want to contribute to the safety of the community, what can you do? We know what we can do every day. We can be good neighbors. We can, if you see something, say something. But when it comes to the planning stages, we've got a great opportunity. We discussed it last week, but that's our local roadway safety plan. And on that, you can jump on and you can actually log, if you have an issue in town, sorry, I was looking at the screen here. If you have an issue in town where you think there's a traffic safety problem, this is a great opportunity. You can log it and you can put your contact information on there. So if our engineers need additional information from you, they can reach out to you. There's also a pin map on there. So if you wanted to know what our accidents look like, this is the data straight from our traffic collision reports. You can zoom into these maps. All of those little pins, those dots, will show you, if you click on them, it'll show you how severe the collisions were, whether it was a property collision only, whether there was minor injuries, complaints of pains, all the way up to fatal. And then you can also look, if you wanted to hone in on specifically just the bike and pedestrian collisions, you can see them here. And this is over a several year period of time. But if you look, it's exactly what we talk about. It is our Camino Task Corridor and our downtown area where we see them all clustered. And so that's where we spend most of our time enforcing. We talk about how we enforce. We enforce those areas where the collisions are occurring for the violations that are most commonly causing those collisions. But this is an opportunity to get away from the enforcement and get into the engineering. So how can we design our roadways? How can we, stripe and sign and do all of those things that we know our transportation department does to make everyone in town safer? So if you point it out here, they will listen, and I would encourage you to do it. And let me just show you how easy it was. I just went on and kind of did one myself. This is not my personal complaint. This is what I have received from several residents, and what I thought I'd do is I thought I would just log it into the system. When you click on the link below in the description, you'll be taken to a website, and then you can see those maps I was talking about, and you also have a chance to report your concern. And you can either do it by drawing you can draw up a pin, or you can actually draw a square. And so if you see what I'm doing, I'm zooming in here on the map to Hearts and Prospect. We know that's the busy corner, and I simply drop the pin right there in the middle of the intersection, and then I can put my notes to describe what I feel is the hazard. And so we've got my complaint coming in here, and I'm saying that this is what I see. I see a lot of vehicle traffic. I see a lot of pedestrian traffic, and it makes it a little bit less safe for pedestrians to cross. Once you submit, it's going to ask you for your contact information. All you have to do is put your contact information in there, and then it'll ask you if you want to submit an additional incident. So if you want to report an additional incident, you can go ahead and do that. But as you can see, it's a pretty simple system. There really isn't much to it. The goal is to make it as easy as possible for all of you to provide feedback. And so we hope you do. All right. And it looks like Sue is saying she put hers in, or put hers on. So I'm hoping she's talking about the map there. So Sue, good job. Thanks. And I would encourage everyone else to do the same. All right. I'm going to reverse these. I was going to go over an accident, but let's go over crime first. As usual, you can go to communitycrimenap.com. You can set alerts, and you can have those alerts delivered straight to your inbox. We put all of our information out there except for certain special cases like sexual assaults and family offenses. This is one of the lowest weeks for crime that I think we've seen. On April 26th, we had a stolen vehicle. The suspect was known to the victim at the time of the theft, and ultimately there was a pursuit of that vehicle. And then on the 27th, there was a stolen computer from an unlocked vehicle. And really, we did not know about it until the computer was recovered. And what we're happy to say is that one of our local agencies here made a stop on a car, ended up arresting the driver, searching the car, and found the computer. And when they found the computer, they were trying to find out whose it was. They were able to determine whose it was. They called us, Danville Police, to go out and take the report. And they believe there was other stolen property in there, but they're not sure whose it is. And so it's, as a reminder to all of us, it's important that you have like your serial numbers on for your devices. When an officer comes out, like if your car were to be broken into and an officer comes out, we're going to ask you for a description of it and the serial number. What we can do, we can put serial numbers. We can put what's called an owner applied number. So some people used to write, like if you had a device that didn't have a serial number on it, you could actually inscribe it with your driver's license number, and we could enter that into the system. And it's a statewide or a national system, depending on the value of the product. And when an officer makes a stop like that, they can actually run that out. Otherwise, we've got to take a lot of steps to try to determine whose equipment that is. So in this case, the equipment was recovered, the person was arrested, then we came and we took the report for the theft that our victim didn't know had occurred because the arrest was so close in time to the theft. So good job on our local police department there for doing that. As far as our collisions, we did have an injury collision, we had a property collision, then we had 2 hit and runs. And if you recall, a lot of times when I'm reporting on hit and runs, it is a parking lot. It's maybe the clock tower. In fact, one of those I think was the clock tower parking lot, or the one of the downtown parking lots. This one though, on the 28th, was a hit and run on Sycamore and 680 with a truck carrying a trailer that initially actually pulled over, stopped, and then when the driver said, hey, let's exchange insurance, the driver of the other car took off, and our victim driver of the hit and run didn't get the description. Luckily, the driver was able to describe what the vehicle looked like and the fact that it had a trailer, so a dark truck towing a trailer, tight time frame, right? Because we know about when it happened. We're able to pull it up on our cameras, the citywide cameras, and we've got a really good lead of a dark truck and a trailer that hit one of our cameras 2 blocks away. So we're following up on that. But one of the things we recommend is if you're involved in an accident, make sure you pull over to a safe area so that you can get out and exchange information. I recommend that you get your phone out and just start snapping pictures. The first one I take when I'm involved in an accident is of the license plate of the vehicle and the vehicle itself that hit me. And I think that's the safest way to go. And that way, if there is an issue, you've already captured that information and you can go from there. All right, let's look at the rest of the collisions. On the 29th, we had a property damage collision at Avenida Nueva and Diablo Road. That was a solo vehicle accident. On the 29th, again, we had an injury collision between 2 vehicles at Linda Mesa and Railroad downtown. That one ensnarled traffic quite a bit. And then on the 30th, we had a non-injury collision at Railroad Avenue and West Prospect. The one, I'm sorry, it was actually the one at Railroad and West Prospect that caused the traffic backup. On that one, we had to direct traffic a lot, and I'm going to say thank you to all of you. I was actually out there. I was helping our parking enforcement direct traffic. Very busy intersection, lots of people going in and out. And what I'm happy to say is that people were very patient, and we tried to say as many thank yous as we could. But thank you to all of you that were down there and did a good job of being patient with us while we tried to make sure that everything was safe. Sometimes we have to stop all of the traffic to make sure fire can get out, fire can get in, and make sure that that people are being treated safe. Now let's look at a collision that had occurred, and this was again sent from Al Kalin. He's a big cyclist, and he gave us permission. In fact, he posted this on YouTube. This is of a collision between a bike and a car. Ultimately, in this one, the car is at fault. But what I want you to pay attention to is the bike is traveling in the roadway, and they do not have a stop sign. The other 2 directions have stop signs. And so the bike, just as a car would, is allowed to continue on straight, and the cars that are crossing the path that have stop signs have to stop. And I think the easiest way to think about it from both sides, either from the cyclist side or from the car side, is consider that bike a car. So if you're riding a bike, if you wouldn't do it in a car, don't do it on a bike. So if you don't run a stop sign, if you're in the car and you see a bike, treat them as a car. If they're in the intersection, it's their intersection. In this case, it appears that the driver did not see, and you'll kind of, I'll walk you through it, but you'll see what happens here. So the bike is traveling forward, and you can see that there's 2 vehicles at the stop signs. One makes the right turn, which isn't crossing the path, and the one that's crossing the path ends up colliding with the back end of the cyclist. And you can see that the car and the cyclist were coming at near, I guess, head on, right? But the roadway that the cyclist was on actually intersects with the one that the car was on. So the car had an obligation to check both directions, make sure the roadway was clear, and then proceed when safe. And I will say that bikes can be pretty tricky to see at times. And so I'm not saying that there was anything malicious or anything like that. I'm not casting judgment on anyone in that incident. I'm just saying, and I offer this to all of you because I think it can be very, very tricky when driving. And so what I'll say is, if we can just show patience and grace, I think we're going to be better off. And if you have a stop sign, it's your obligation to make sure everything is clear. Luckily, the cyclist, Al, just has some bruised ribs. I feel really bad for him, but I'm glad that he was safe. There is another takeaway from that. He fell to the ground, and in that situation, what you don't want to do is you don't want to move people. And the person here actually did a good job, called 911. The paramedics came out and helped him. But if someone is a pedestrian or someone on a bike or even someone in a car is hit and it looks like they may have injuries, don't move them. Let the paramedics get out there, let the police get out there, and they will take care of it. All right, I'm going to check the chat real quick. Again, a reminder, if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat and we'll try to answer them during the show. Okay, so Lou says, to be clear, the traffic report is on the Danville City app. So the traffic report, if you're talking about to report incidents of roadway safety, so this could be pedestrian, bicycles, it could be cars, it is for the jurisdiction of Danville, and it is a unique website that has been stood up specifically for this project, and there's a link in the description below. So if you just scroll down into the description, you'll see it, and you can click on it, and you can put as many locations within the town of Danville as you can. Okay. All right, looks like that's all the questions or comments we have. So I am going to move on. So we're in our series on safety. And we like to say it's all hazards, but I think one of the ones we tend to worry about the most is our fire safety. And what we'd like to talk about today is we're going to cover some definitions real quick. And then we're going to cover how not to actually cause a fire. If you look, I think 95% of all wildfires in California are caused by people. So we're the cause. So there may be conditions that lend themselves to a fire, but ultimately it's an act of a person that causes them. It's not always a lightning strike. It'd be nice if we could attribute all to lightning strikes because we'd have fewer fires. But unfortunately, a lot of the fires are caused by humans. They're caused by us. So let's look at some of the definitions that you may see. You're going to see weather services. You're going to see emergency centers issue alerts and warnings. And I think it's good to see what those are and what they look like. So let's take a look at some of them. A fire weather watch means that the conditions that could result in a wildfire or occur, and there's extreme fire behavior. And the tricky part, and I didn't know this, but there is a way that our emergency centers will measure how flammable an area is. And that's what will produce this fire weather watch. So you'll see how flammable it is, the wind conditions, all of that. And those usually go hand in hand with a red flag warning, which means that you should be careful of open flames. If you see a fire weather watch or you see a red flag warning, you should limit the activities that could result in a fire being started. So please be careful with that. Now, 2, evacuation warning and an evacuation order. Those are 2 separate things. An evacuation warning is going to be issued typically prior to an evacuation order. An evacuation order is, we need you to evacuate now. There's a life safety hazard and you need to leave now. And that's why it's important that we keep the go bag, then we have our car parked in such a way that we can leave. But if it's an evacuation order, we need you to leave right away. What we will try to do, and the conditions may not always allow it, but what we try to do is actually issue an evacuation warning. So if we know there's an impending hazard coming, we may start with an evacuation order for the small zone that's immediately affected, and then in the broader area, we may issue an evacuation warning saying an evacuation may be coming. And the reason is we think that it will be helpful for those people that may take longer to move. So if you know you've got some mobility issues or your neighbor has mobility issues, I would suggest leaving at the earliest possible time, get to a safe location, and don't wait for the evacuation order. All right. The other that you might see is actually a shelter in place. And this is a request from, a lot of times you'll see it from either law enforcement or fire through our emergency operations center or our community warning system. And what we're asking people to do is shelter in place, because by remaining outside is going to create a hazard, a life safety hazard. We did have an incident, this is I think going on like 4 or 5 years ago, where there was some people that were doing a dig in an area, and there's a lot of underground survey equipment, and I'm not an engineer, so I might mess up some of the specifics, but there is an equipment that they can use that looks underneath the ground, and it has a piece of radiation in it that's inside of a sealed capsule, so it doesn't have any negative health effects so long as it's in the system. That device had gotten run over. As soon as that had gotten run over, without inspecting it, we just evacuated the area. So there was not an opportunity for us to determine should we issue a warning and then start to evaluate? It was something is a hazard right now, we're going to issue an evacuation order. When we do that, we put it out on Nixle, and then we will give updates on Nixle as far as when the affected area can repopulate, they can come back home. And so that is how that has worked in the past, and that's the same path that we would follow should we need to give any of those warnings in the future. So knowing that we're the cause of 95% of the fires, what can we do to prevent fires? So if we know that we're in red flag, if you look at the south side of Mount Diablo right now, it is very brown, right? It was green 3 weeks ago. It's fully brown right now. So we know it's dry. Last week we talked, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about, no, it was last week. We talked about your own home, upkeeping your yard, keeping the area around it free from debris and those things that might start a fire. But what are the specific activities that we can do to minimize that risk? First thing is equipment use. If you can mow before 10, it's that way it's not excessively dry. It's usually a little bit more calm as far as the wind. And then ensure that if you're using a mower, don't use it on dry grass. I mean, it really is a hazard. Those mowers get really, really hot. And I'll share a story with you from a friend of mine. He's at another agency, and he was parking in an area that was like a fire road, and it was up on top of a hill. And what he liked to do is he would park his patrol car there because he could see the construction sites at night. And he was parking his car there, and what he didn't realize was underneath his car, it was actually starting the dry brush on fire, and he had to get out with a fire extinguisher and cool it off and put the fire out. So mowers, cars, all those things produce a tremendous amount of heat that can easily spark a fire. So I would say, please make sure if you're going to mow, don't mow that dry grass. Use another tool for that, and use use another device if you're going to do dry grass. Use the mowers for the grass only. And don't drive your car on dry grass or brush. And if you happen to, make sure that you remove it immediately and look for any fires. As far as campfires, you're going to see that they're not going to be permitted for most of the summer in most of our park areas. As you go up Mount Diablo, you'll see that they have right at the entrance to Southgate, they've got a sign that will tell you exactly what you can and can't do when it comes to fires. But what I would do when we go up there is just plan on not having one, figure out what activity you can do outside of that, figure out a different way to enjoy it without the campfire, because it is really, really tough to get emergency services up on the mountain. And that goes for our west side community as well. Vehicle maintenance, make sure you secure chains, dragging parts, really check your tire pressure. A tire that's rubbing excessively or that blows out can be the cause of a fire once that rim goes down. And make sure you maintain your brakes so that they're not excessively heating. And I'll say one of the hazards I see, and it's kind of the hidden hazards, is you'll see someone hook up a trailer. You hook up your wires, you hook it up to the ball, and then trailers come with safety chains or cables. Well, if they're chains, they might be excessively long, and once you load down the trailer and the truck with stuff, those chains will actually drag on the ground as you drive. And so what you want to do is you want to leave only that amount of chain that's necessary so that the trailer will move adequately, but not drag those chains on the ground. All right, I'm going to check the chat and see if there's any questions. Gary, thanks. I appreciate you giving Al well wishes. If anyone does any cycling in the area, you know Al Kalin, and you know that he has done tremendous things to make the community safe. He's a great partner in the community, so I was very sad to see that with him. All right, so that's what I have. So I'm just going to give two quick messages. First one is, if you want to see us live, come and join us, Jamba Juice with the Police, Wednesday at 3. As we get into the summer months, we're going to try to get some of these out at like 5 and 6 o'clock. So for those of us that work during the day, you can come and check us out. But this is a good opportunity from 3 to 4 p.m., Wednesday, May 11th. You can see us at Jamba Juice. And then please consider giving your comments and your feedback to our local roadway safety plan. There is a link in the description below. If you want to improve Danville's bike safety, vehicle safety, pedestrian safety, all of that, this is a great opportunity. I know we've been pitching a lot of things. We've got the downtown master plan, we've got the bike master plan, and now we have this. I think you can see that the town is working really, really hard to make Danville a great place, to make everyone's lives here better. But this is how you specifically can contribute. So I would say, please do that. All right. I don't see anything else in the chat. So we're 10-10, and but we're always 10-8 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville.